Good to go.
All right. All right. Welcome, everybody, to another GD podcast. I'm your host, Guy DeMarco. And this week we are continuing our journey in the installments and the discussions of American gun culture. This forum serves as a fun and laid back way to engage with people from the industry, people outside the industry, thought leaders, people from different backgrounds and different walks of life to talk about American gun culture for not only its positives, but also some of its negatives, and the influences that has on American culture today and the society that we live in. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to start off with our guest tonight. Scott, go ahead and give yourself a little bit of an introduction there.
Sure, man. Hey, thanks. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me. My name is Scott Howell. I'm a resident of California. I've been in the fitness industry for over 25 years. Currently own Red and operate Red Dot Fitness. It essentially it's all coaching. Everybody's either
Okay.
with a personal trainer or in some kind of a group, or getting some type of specialized service specific to their health and wellness. That's where I make my living. And I'm also the host of the Iron Sights podcast, where we get in a lot of the subject matter that I imagine we're going to talk about tonight. That's me.
Awesome. And you said you're the owner operator of Red Dot Fitness. That's what pays the bills on a daily basis.
Yeah, you got it. Like, the fitness industry is something that I started very early in life, and I've had the very fortunate, I guess, journey to be able to make it not just a lifestyle, but also a living out of it. And
Okay.
Red Dot started. I've worked in commercial corporate fitness for a long time, and Red Dot Fitness started about 15 years ago, and here we are. We're still doing it.
Awesome. Um, and how old are you?
I just literally had a birthday in February. I just turned 49.
Well, happy birthday.
Yeah, thanks, man.
I do listen to your show. That's how I kind of heard about you, and some of the things that you guys talk about on your show is very relevant to this show, like you said. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
And are we ever going to go back to the blue hair with the frosted tips?
What's to be clear? I know this just came up on. I knew this was. There's a clip of that statement that got cut by our producers, and if I put that out there, I'm never going to hear the end of it. Yes, no, it was not blue. It was black, and it was yeah, there's some color in my hair at one point in my life.
Okay, okay.
That was a different time. Thanks for bringing that up. I appreciate it.
Not a problem.
Not.
So 49 years old, any military
Yeah.
service?
No, I did not serve. I have zero military service. I have a lineage of military in my family, but that is not something that I did. It's actually one of the bigger regrets I have in life that I did not do that.
Okay. If you were to join, do you know what branch you would have joined?
Yes, I actually was very much interested in exploring the Marine Corps.
Okay.
At the time I was a kid, so I graduated high school in 1993. So we're talking Desert Storm
Right.
time, and if you were, I mean, it was a different time, different day and
Yes.
age, but the Marines were in the fight, and I knew if I was going to go over and do anything or get in and do anything, the Marine Corps was the direction I wanted to go. Learning now, or
Hmm.
knowing now what I know about how that all worked out for people, and some people went, some people didn't go. I'm not
Right.
sure how it would have gone for me, but that was where I was headed.
Okay. College degree. Do you are
Interesting.
you are you the educated man?
So I have multiple years of college with no degree. I was one of those guys. I actually went in as an administration of justice major,
Okay.
and with the intention of becoming a police officer.
Okay.
And then as I got a couple years into that, and I had sort of some life experiences that where I started to look at things differently, and I was watching things happen locally. I live in San Jose, California, which at the
Okay.
time was one of the safest cities in the United States. But I was watching some things happen administratively, and I had some neighbors that were actually police officers. And they were really unhappy, and there was some stuff going on, and it kind of got to me and turned me off. So I switched majors and got into, of all things, I got into agribusiness.
Okay.
Transferred schools of family history in agriculture. I started studying that, and that's where I started to really explore the fitness end of things, and then discovered I could make a career out of it.
Okay.
Then, so I had about a year and a half of like business school underneath me, and then I
Okay.
decided to change my I thought a good idea would be to change my major to nutrition science. And the track that I was on would have been to become a registered dietitian.
Right.
And I was simultaneously working in the fitness industry while seeking, I would say, alternate forms of education. The interwebs were not quite the same as they are now.
Right.
And so we had to kind of get out and get on the road and go to things. And I was learning some very interesting things from very interesting people that had a lot of experience in the world of health, wellness, nutrition, fitness. And what I found was there's a lot of contradiction between what I was learning in school and what I was learning from a practical application perspective for what I wanted to do, which was work with people who wanted to be healthy, not work with people that were already sick.
Right.
And so, and again, I was learning that there's a career field here and I could make some money doing it. And I was very impatient. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to finish school. I'm just going to chase my career, and still doing that.
Yeah. And been successful doing it.
Yeah, I'd like to
Um,
think so. I feel fortunate.
and you've already answered the location. You're in San Jose, and
Yep.
that's south of the Bay Area, right?
So if you think of the Bay Area, we're at the bottom of it. So you
Okay.
got the Bay Area, the peninsula that goes up at, to where San Francisco is, and that
Hmm.
crosses over to the other side. And then on the opposite side of San Francisco is Oakland. We're at the
Right.
bottom. Yep.
Okay. I've um I've been up to the San Fran area once. I went to the Bay Area Rifle Championship in like 2015, I think
Where
it
the hell was
was.
that? Where was that?
Richmond on the north
Okay, yes,
side.
gotcha.
Like
Yeah, yeah.
I stayed with some friends in Martinez and looked over the look.
Okay.
They had a big house that overlooked the bay that they bought in like the 70s and
Yeah,
all this crazy stuff. Beautiful area.
it is.
Beautiful like driving up there because I was stationed in SoCal. Um, beautiful drive up, but man, like that was an area.
It's funny, like people see, like obviously like the San Francisco 49ers that were,
Right.
just in the Super Bowl or whatever. People think, you know, San Francisco is the Bay Area. San Francisco is a very small
Small.
part of a very large region. And it's very interesting, all the bordering cities that touch one another. Like there's multiple cities that touch, and they all touch. There's no open space in between, really,
Correct.
between like us and 50 miles from here is San Francisco. And then it's the same going the other way up to Oakland. It is extraordinarily, I use the word in air quotes, diverse in so many different ways, from
Right.
geography to, to climate to
Hmm.
socioeconomic status. It is I've worked in a lot of metropolitan areas, and in my career, traveled all over the United States. This one is unique.
Right.
It's unique, like a lot of them are, but this one is unique. You nailed it. It's beautiful. There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff going on here all the time.
Right. All the time. Um, and you are a business owner is so you own and operate Red Dot Fitness. Are
Mhm.
there sub businesses listed underneath there as far as like the coaching and like the podcast from like the business aspect, like multiple LLCs all under an umbrella and all that
You know,
craziness?
yeah. So no, we've kept it very simple in that with regard to like more of like a legal structure. My partner in life and partner in business, Cece, we always wanted it to be simple that way, and so we've
Okay.
kept it that way. But within the business and under, I guess you could say, the umbrella Red Dot Fitness, there are multiple, I would say, like silos or buckets of
Okay.
things that are almost like separate businesses within the business. And you might look at it this way, like nutrition coaching, huge part of our business. We
Hmm.
do that both in person and online. And then there's also, what you could refer to as like fitness coaching, which is more of what people think about when they think about
Right.
personal training. Those are very different businesses. They're very similar in what we're trying to get accomplished, but they're very different in terms of what people need, how to structure those, and the professionals that work within those. Like I've got a lot of great personal trainers or coaches that don't coach nutrition, right, and
Right.
and shouldn't be and can't. And then I have nutrition coaches that, they are, while they are very connected to their fitness coaching isn't like what they're trying to do. So we have kind of two businesses going there. The podcast in and of itself has now become a little bit of a business. And
Right.
to answer your question directly, one of the things that we have considered going into this year is maybe it's time to separate these out a little bit and go with like an LLC or something underneath with regard to the podcast, because there's some business opportunities we're already taking advantage of, and it
Right.
probably makes sense to separate them out.
Right. And I only ask that question because like sometimes I see it as, it comes across as like Red Dot Fitness, and then sometimes it comes across as Ironside's podcast. So I'm always
Yep.
like,
Where's
okay,
this? Yeah.
they're both sites. Like obviously you got Red Dot and then you got Iron Sights. I was like, I like the theme that you kept with
Yeah.
the optical tracking system on a firearm, but I was like, are they the same? So that was just kind of a personal question I had there. Um, do you compete? Like, and not necessarily like the guest I had on last night, not in the firearm space,
Yep.
but she still competes. She does long distance running. So like, do you compete on the fitness level? Do you compete in the firearms competition or like any type of discipline within that? Long range pistol, USPSA, steel challenge, anything like that?
Great question. I have always been very competitive and spent a large part of my life competing sort of on the fitness level. So, as growing up in my early teens and being a young man, I definitely competed. I did a lot of the things a lot of young men do. There was wrestling, there was track and field, there was football, which was life for a long time, and then that was over. But I was really good at lifting heavy shit and moving heavy objects and things like that. And always enjoyed the weight room. Bodybuilding became a thing for a while. Again, going back to the fitness industry, there was a little bit of
Hmm.
a tie in there. Tried my hand at that, you know, figured out a few things about that world and what I wanted to do and what I didn't want to do in order
Uh-huh.
to be competitive. But also just kind of the lifestyle and things like that and where I was in life. Spent a little time doing that. Then I spent a lot of time actually. This blows people's minds when they see me. I spent a lot of time in like in the in the world of triathlon or multisport. And I
Okay.
say triathlon and multisport together because when people think multisport, that's generally what they think. But within that, there were all kinds of things that it did. There were duathlons, which is just the biking and the running. There
Hmm.
were some other specialized events, but one of the things I got into was adventure racing.
Okay.
Um,
Yep.
yeah, and then that turned into some other things, like some things that kind of came off of that would be like mountain biking.
Right.
competed doing some mountain biking for a while, so I always did a lot of that. And then as the career went on and I got older, you become a dad, and you
Yep.
were competing less frequently. And I did get into jujitsu for a while with
Hmm.
the intention of doing that, but I think that wasn't, so I realized really quickly what that was going to mean for me. In order to,
Hmm.
I had to make a commitment to it that I wasn't able to or ready to make. So
That's years of commitment.
it is, I mean,
And
years, and it's
yeah,
life. And if you want to do it and you want to do anything well, for that matter, that's
you're
part of
going to
it.
the
So
gym, you're going to the gym 3 to 5 times a week,
I didn't
doing
have the
classes.
bandwidth.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't have the bandwidth for that. So you go to the shooting piece. I haven't been competing or haven't been like competitive for a while.
Hmm.
However, in the last 4 months, I've done two steel match challenges.
Hmm.
That's with the pistol for the people that don't know. That's been fun. I use it, to be quite frank, less uh, of a competition. I'm always competing with myself these days,
Right.
in just about everything I do, but I use it more as live fire practice
Yep.
because we are very, very limited here in
Yeah.
the region that I live in. And so any opportunity we can get to go out there and just shoot, period, live, where you're not
Yeah.
being where there's no restrictions. Obviously, you're just competition, so there's frameworks and rules. But yeah, so I have done a little bit of that. I would love to, and I've been encouraged to get into the tactical games, which is a very
Right.
popular up and coming sport. I have some very close friends that are very competitive there, and they're like, "Dude, you got to try this." I'm like,
I've seen some
"Yeah,
of it. I know that I think they just had
they did."
a match here recently. I
Hmm.
caught some of the highlights on social. Um, I'm gonna do a little bit more digging because I've heard they have different type of tactical games. Like they
They do.
have one that's pistol, one that's like rifle stuff, but they also have one that's like long range tactical games. So I think I'm gonna
Yeah,
try that.
there are several out there, I think. And so there's the tactical games, and then there are a lot of people that are doing other similar type of things, or with
Hmm.
that include different disciplines, which I think is awesome.
Yeah.
It's just bringing more people into the sport, also into the world of firearms and competition, and making it fun, and competitive, which I think everybody should try and do. And the more access people have to it, I think the better. So I may I may start looking into that this year. What I am committed to, and it's not on the calendar, but I committed to myself and to friends that I would do a PRS match
I know who you're
this
talking
year.
about.
So
Scott and Scott are gonna be in a match together.
yeah, yeah. So So I am going to do that. I've actually got a lot of training planned over the next 2 months, which I'm super excited about to kind of ramp up for that, and then ultimately make a choice of where I can do that. So
Yeah.
that's the
Are you,
competition.
I know there's some NorCal matches that go on, but are you thinking about coming out east for one of those or?
I think I like to travel. Um, I think I love traveling, and I get to take advantage of the traveling, or what I get to take advantage of the traveling is time with CC. She
Yep.
always travels with me, which is always fun for the two of us. I get to meet new people in different places, experience new things. The podcast is always a part of it. So if I'm going to
Right.
travel somewhere, I always look to try to connect with people that are in that region. And there are so many cool things out there. Again, I'll go back to like the California thing. Not that we're on the PRS side of things, like there are matches kind of everywhere. But I love getting out into nature
Right.
and seeing different places and doing different things. And that's one of the things I think I'm really drawn to PRS is some of
Right.
these ranges and matches are in some pretty phenomenal spots. So
Exactly.
I'm going to explore that.
So, my goal every year is to shoot at a new venue.
Yeah,
Um,
I love that goal. Yeah.
so last year, so I've shot PRS like the 1 day stuff, and I've volunteered and been a range officer up a lot, and gone to bunch of different places. But like last year, I was like, okay, I want to shoot um, two new venues. So I ended up shooting in Arkansas for their first ever 2 day match, and then I actually shot a match in Tennessee, and then this year. Um, I just donated plasma today to pay for the match fee for Texas.
I love that.
So,
Yeah, it's
um,
great.
as soon as this is done, I'm gonna log in and I'm gonna go pay for my Texas spot that comes up at the end of April, and then I'm trying. The match sold out before I could get a spot, but trying to go up to Virginia and um, this is the first time we've actually talked on the phone or through Skype or anything like that. We've talked on social and whatnot, but most of my podcast is all on like the Zoom H6, so I can take all my stuff with me,
Yep.
and I literally just break it out and then grab competitors, sit down, we'll have a beer or a soda or water or whatever after the day is done, and then I'll just ask them how they did or what they liked about the match or who they are, or let them
Hmm.
talk about their sponsors or whatever. So I also part of my gig is going to all these different matches
Hmm.
and trying to talk to the competitors. Or, for example, last year at the Collis match in Tennessee, they had like a vendor day on Friday. So I got to sit down with all the vendors and let them talk about, why they're here, what their product is, all that other stuff. And for me, it's a way to give back to the community. I'm not making anything on this. Like
Right.
I'm doing it because I'm having fun and I'm, testing the waters of what I want to do when I get out. So
I commend you for that. I've done very similarly, done the same. And uh the those kinds of conversations, I think when you can just kind of pull people aside and they're go like, wait, you want me to talk? What are we going to talk about? We're just going to have a
mhm,
conversation, bud. Let's just talk about why you're here, what you're doing. Those oftentimes are some of the best, most insightful, fun conversations you can have because they're organic. I think this word gets tossed around a lot and it may be a little cliche, but they are authentic, in
right.
a lot of ways. And just what happens kind of happens. It's not contrived. Those are the ones that I love listening to. And then again, in your what you said there about giving back, in the end, it exposes more people to the
Exactly.
good people that are out there. So important. I wish more people were out there doing these events. And
Hmm.
anytime I'm invited or I get to go to them when I can make them, I always pack up the Zoom because that's what I
Yep.
record with when I'm outside of the H6 when I'm
Yep.
not here. Get everything in the Pelican box. I take it. I don't mind setting it up, dragging it around, putting it on
Yep.
airplanes or whatever, dragging it through hotel lobbies or whatever. I think that's awesome, and more people should be doing that. And those event coordinators should be reaching out to people to invite them out to do that too, to spread the word. That's my take.
Right. And also it gives the people that weren't able to attend the match like an
Yeah,
insight to like, oh, I can read the match. Like if somebody posts one video of a stage or somebody posts the match book, you know,
right.
you might get a little glimpse into it. But if I ask every person that comes on, be like, hey, what was your favorite stage? What stage do you want to get back? They describe the stage. Now it gives the listener almost like they were there. to a
Yes,
point.
sir. I agree with you 100%. It's like they get to be a fly on the wall of
Hmm.
whatever is going on, and they get a little insight and it's a little intel,
Yeah,
on how to prepare for the next time. And I think it's a big thing that maybe like a barrier for a lot of people getting into the sport or going to maybe do a match is maybe not being prepared. And do I
right.
have all the right things, or thinking that they have to have all of these things to go out there and be competitive.
A hundred
Uh,
percent.
and that you have to be like a top shooter to go do this stuff. So yeah, more exposure to what it's like there rather than just a photo. So I think it's so cool.
Right. Um, are you a hunter? I know you're in California, so
Right.
the opportunities are few and far between, but you said you like to travel. So do you travel for any hunting or anything like that?
Like my father hunted a bit. I Before moving to California, we were a couple other places, but we were in Utah for a while. And my
Okay.
father, when I was very young, at 5 years old, was hunting pretty frequently with deer tags and elk tags out in the mountains in Utah. And they would go up on horseback at the very high elevation. And I don't think he thought it was really. I don't think, number one, he didn't want to take me along, right? He was
Right.
like, "Hey, I'm going out with the boys. We're going out and hunting. This is
Right.
dude time." And looking back, like I completely respect that. And the other part is quite frankly, I'm not sure I would have done too well out there. You're talking, knee deep or more snow on horseback,
Hmm.
and it was it's hard trekking. Long story
Right.
short, like we moved around a bunch and then came back to California, and the access here is very limited. It's a lot of work to live in the Bay Area
Yes.
and go hunt. And there's a big commitment that needs to take place there. And so with all the commitments that my parents had made to us as kids, I have a brother who's younger by 5 years, and all the other things that we were doing, it just never really came up. So I never chased it. And
Okay.
so to answer the question directly, I have hunted. I've been a couple of times,
Okay.
mostly birds, been out for deer
Hmm.
a couple of times. It's just not something I do regularly.
Right.
I would love to, and I was just having a convo with a guy out in Idaho about bow hunting. I did pick up
Hmm.
the bow a couple of years ago with the
Right.
intention of, okay, I'm really doing it this time. Like,
Right. Right.
because
Right.
turkeys are somewhat available. Sometimes you can get out on some private property and do that. But there's really, without very, very exclusive access around here,
Right.
hunting is just not a thing. But and so it's something that as I near 50, as we've already exposed my ripe old age of 49, as I near 50, looking at the next 25 years, it's something I want to explore more and do. Because I think, number one, I said it, I love getting out in nature. I am not, in my experience, a deer stand or a blind type of dude. I want to get out and
Right.
stalk and hike around and be physical. I think it's a really great skill to have.
Awesome. Yeah, I my family is the fishing background. Like my dad, we went fishing all the time, like as kids. They still go fishing. My nephew is 14 years old, sponsored fishing like man, like builds his own um fishing products and then sells them to his local fishing store. He's
Yeah.
sponsored by those guys. He went to Junior Bass Masters Championship in Oklahoma this past year. 2 years ago, he was in Arkansas doing the Arkansas River for it. Like the kid can fish. Like probably going to go to college on a fishing scholarship kind of
That's
kind of
amazing that
deal.
they even do that. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's awesome. So we never really hunted. We shot occasionally, but the
Yep.
primary gear was fishing. So like I've never deer hunted. I've gone coyote hunting and I sat in our little, not blind, but in our little spots or whatever. We took first place, but I never fired a shot because they never came at me, right? So when I was in California, I looked at doing some of that private land hog hunting, and it
Mhm.
like $700 to go out there and like possibly not
Maybe,
get, yeah,
maybe, yeah,
maybe get a hog. Like it wasn't available. I wasn't willing to do it. And now that I've lived here in the South, I've got a couple of buddies that are like, hey, come on out, but like kids, schedules, work,
yeah.
TDYs, like all the stuff. It's always crazy. We're always like, yeah, we got something set up. And then it's like, oh, you're going to South Korea in June. I was like, oh, I thought I was going to Papua
Right.
New Guinea in September. Like, what's going on? They're like, oh no, we need you to go here, here, and here. But like,
That is certainly part of it. I mean, it's something that
Yeah.
needs to be, again, it's a lot of work. It needs to be planned. It's not something you just
Yeah.
do. And, again, running your own business, operating your own business, the last few years have been weird.
Yeah.
Of all the time that I've spent in this business, they've certainly been very weird. And as being a small business owner and having responsibilities and a family and all that stuff, like, yeah, it hasn't been on the priority list. But again, the next 25 years,
Yeah.
we're gonna get out there and do that. But I feel you on the fishing thing. Grew up fishing, did a lot of
Mhm.
that, and still love doing that whenever I can get out.
And the last question in this little intro, at what age did you have your first positive interaction with a firearm?
I remember vividly. It was in the mountains of Utah. My dad was going out to zero a an optic on a 300 Win Mag that had been handed to him by my uncle, my mom's brother, who was more or less like a father figure to her.
Okay.
He couldn't really afford to buy a new rifle, and he didn't need one. Or sorry, my uncle had several and handed him
Right.
this rifle. So he was going out to zero at night. I'd never shot before, never been around a firearm before. I'd seen them. My dad had them around the house, but I'd never shot.
Right.
So we went out to zero this rifle at a range. He sets it up. He sets up what he's going to do, but he brought with him a uh, a single shot 22 rifle. This
Okay.
was this was one that his father gave him when he was 10 years old.
Okay.
It's basically an antique.
Yep.
And I think, maybe it had a 20-inch barrel on it, or 18-inch barrel on it, or whatever. And so he set it up, and I had no idea he was taking me to go shoot. And
Right.
so I think I was 6 at this point.
Okay.
And he set it up for me, and shot some targets, whatever. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. I was out shooting with my dad. And then and then in that same experience, then it was his turn, and he set that thing up. Now I don't know what I expected was going to
Right.
happen when he pulled the trigger on that thing, but there's no break on this thing. And
Oh yeah.
it was like, it's basically an explosion for a 6-year old.
Oh
And
yeah.
at first it
100%.
scared the crap out of me, and then I thought it was the coolest thing ever. After that, yep, that was.
I thought you were gonna say he got this 300 Win Mag and he took you to the range and put you behind it
Nope.
for your
No,
first
he
time.
knew
I was
better
like,
than
oh my
that.
God. I
Yeah,
said
he knew better
positive
than that. Yeah,
experience.
he would have killed me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that thing, yeah, even that thing leaves a mark if I take it out, which I rarely do, because it really is uncomfortable to shoot.
Yeah, it's a
Uh,
thumper for sure.
it is for sure. Yeah.
Okay, so down to the questions about American gun culture. So, what is your definition of popular culture?
Oh God, man, that's a really great question. I think, a quick definition of it would be, uh, it's whatever social media tells you is popular,
Okay.
is what popular is these days. And I mean that sort of tongue in cheek. Uh, I think that if I went back, like, again, talking about age, if I went back 20 years and what pop culture was what you got fed through, let's say, film,
Yep.
music, and even I would say like food. So
Okay.
cinema, and music, and food and things like that. That's kind of how things evolved through like a pop culture, you know, thing for me. But as you gotten older, it seems like it could be a lot of different things.
Right.
And I think you have to pick what it is that you want to focus on. And then with each one of those things, there's all these different cultures and subcultures, and what's pop and what isn't pop
Absolutely.
changes rapidly. That's a really solid question. I don't know if I'm giving a really solid answer for it, but
No, you
um,
you kind of hit the nail on the head. Like one of the um theories in the realm of pop culture is that pop culture is manufactured, right?
100%.
Whether it be
That I can agree with. Yep.
whether it be through your social medias, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, X, whatever, but also like through film, through the news, like everything that you consume forms your thought process, and all of that stuff is in some way manufactured. And like you're kind of split between two different types of pop culture, between gym culture,
Hmm.
which there's our own subsets of gym culture, and
Hmm.
then firearms culture, where you've got different genres of that even within gun culture. So I think you're right on the mark with that. And then you mentioned like 20 years ago, what pop culture was. You said film, and my assignment that I'm doing for next week is I have to do a movie review, and they gave us a list of like 20, 25 movies. I'm a big action guy, but there wasn't a lot
Mhm.
of action on there. So I defaulted to comedy. I was going to review Dogma, right?
Okay.
Um, you can't stream that movie anywhere.
Is
It's
that right?
not available for streaming. Found an article. You won't find it anywhere. There's a big hubbub with the Catholic Church because that whole movie is about making fun of religion
Hmm.
and questioning things and everything like that. And like I read this article and like Harvey Weinstein's in it and the church is involved in it and like that basically you can't stream it anywhere. So I also clicked a link. It brought me to eBay for like a DVD or a VHS Laserdisc, whatever copy of that. It's
Hmm.
between 40 and $120 for that movie right now. So I was like,
That's
wow,
interesting.
that's kind of crazy. So I went with Office Space,
Oh,
right?
great movie. Yeah,
Great
good
movie.
flick.
Tons of
Mhm.
pop culture reference
Mhm.
involved in that
Tons. Hmm.
between
All the things
um
I mentioned are in that:
exactly,
music,
right?
film, like I
Music,
mean, and
film,
food.
like so I also referenced it's manufactured in the realm of all the memes and gifs that have come through it, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
I'm gonna need you to come in on Saturday, okay? Like beating up the printer and like all those
Yep.
things that have happened, or the memes and the gifts that we've gotten out of movies that are part of pop culture. Like
I
that
mean,
movie
those have
came
bred
out.
other things too. Like that movie bred like the movie Waiting. I don't know if
Yeah,
you ever saw that
exactly.
movie.
Yep.
That's basically a spin-off of what you
Exact
saw
spinoff.
happening.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's
And
a great
Office
reference.
Space.
I'm gonna use
Uh,
that now.
uh,
I'm gonna quote you on it. So yeah, I think your definition of pop culture is right on there. Um, More in-depth question.
mhm.
What does the Second Amendment mean to you?
Yeah, this is one that I feel super strongly about. I think the way to the way to explain this is to not overcomplicate it.
Right.
Uh, we as human beings have the right to protect ourselves.
Okay.
I think it's our duty to protect ourselves as well. And the Second Amendment is just acknowledging that and saying we're going to be different as a country and the Constitution here than any other country in the world, and say we're not only acknowledging it, but we're encouraging it because we know what the consequences are of corruption and those that want to be in power and corrupt with power.
Okay.
Um, and so for me, it really is that is what it is at a very basic level. I try not to overcomplicate it at all, and that means everybody. And
Right.
I feel really strongly about that too. That is everybody. Everybody has that right. I don't care what country you're in. I don't care what country you came from. That everybody has that right, and that is what the Second Amendment is here in the United States. To me, it's just acknowledging it, and it's in a sense protecting it, but at the same time I don't think it needs protection.
Right.
It does feel like that and more than ever right now,
Right.
as it states in the Constitution what it is. But that's for everybody, and I think you have to take that with it too. If I can have it, then that means you can have it too, or
Right.
you should have it as well. So
Um, another heavy one. Have you been negatively affected by gun violence?
indirectly,
Okay.
I would say yes, but I think there's different levels of this. I think it's dependent on gun violence has influenced a lot of things in the community that I live in, the city that I live in, the
Right.
state that I live in. I am a father. I am. I was married. I'm not. Cece and I are not married, but she is my partner in life.
Right.
And so the things that happen in society,
Right.
and and as they relate to how they're being perpetrated and by the individuals that are perpetrating them with the use of a firearm. In that sense, I have been dramatically affected by it because it sickens me to see kind of where we are
Right.
as a country or as a society in that sense. but very specifically, outside of somebody in the case of wartime or in law enforcement or something like that, that I know or may be related to me, I have not personally witnessed or been involved in any specific gun violence, and I hope to
Oh,
never be.
so your secondary and tertiary effects, not primary effects. Okay.
Precisely.
Um, so what is your opinion of the state of American gun culture? Where is American gun culture at right now in America?
It's confused. It's very confused, uh, and as a result, I think this is similar, but to me, it's also different. Or it's also different. It's misunderstood at a lot of levels. I think,
Okay.
and the other word I would use is it's very divided. I don't think,
Yeah,
we
I could see
talk
that.
about culture and communities and things like that. It's probably a whole other discussion, but it's very divided. And so with all that, I'm challenged. I'm challenged with it.
Right. And I think is after have this is the third one of these interviews I've done um this week. So like things are kind of running together, but like I think everybody's kind of said the same thing in their own words is um it's complicated, I think is what everybody the basic answer that it boils down to is it's complicated.
Yeah,
Um
I think you're connecting, a thing to a culture, and
right,
culture isn't created by the thing. People create culture, and people can change
correct.
culture or influence culture. It's not the thing, but it's the thing within that culture that gets so many people riled up, which I think creates the misunderstandings, the confusion, and the division. And
Right.
that's the challenging part with it. So I'm not surprised that that's the same answer in some way that you're getting from a lot of other
Right.
people. Yeah.
And like I said, my friend that I interviewed last night, she's on the other side of the camp, and even she said it's complicated. Like the whole thing is complicated. Um, has your overall like obviously you have positive experiences like going out and shooting with your father for the first time,
Mm-hmm.
or you're hunting birds, or going to California range days, things like that. But then
Yeah.
the tertiary and secondary effects of gun violence that you do experience based on um, the society that we live in. Do you think you've had a more positive or more negative interaction with gun culture in America?
Well, I think I have maybe a unique perspective of this, given kind of what the podcast does, and what we talk about, and the opportunities it's provided me to be exposed. And so I will answer that statement with, I think it's been very positive.
Okay.
And part of that is because of the education and the awareness that I have been able to gain from be kind of diving headfirst into it, and doing so coming from the perspective that I am just a dude. I really don't have
Yeah.
any skin in this game. I don't have a product to sell you. I don't have, with regard to anything in the gun industry.
Right.
That To be clear, like, I have a podcast. It's sponsored by the gym, right? And our products and
Right.
programs, and hopefully it brings awareness to those products and programs. But my online business is not stellar, so it's like I'm not really
Right.
pushing that. To be clear, but that said, I think my perspective is maybe a little bit different, than maybe a lot of people, and I feel very fortunate for that. It allows me to get deep into conversation with people, both on and off the podcast,
Hmm.
and opens up conversations that maybe many people don't get or wouldn't have the opportunity to have. And so that's provided a very positive experience for me in trying to get a better understanding, and ultimately uh, have some level of advocacy for our Second Amendment
Right.
and the people that are behind it, and those that are trying to protect it, and live responsibly while exercising their Second Amendment rights on a regular basis. But I'll be honest. I mean, it's not all positive, but it's
Right.
been overwhelmingly positive. I would
Right.
say that.
Um, so what do you think the most positive aspect of gun culture is from like a whole? What do you think the most positive thing that gun culture brings is?
That's an easy one for me, and that's the people.
Okay.
uh particularly the good. There are so many good people, and I think at the end of the day, that's I would like to inherently believe in. I believe that inherently people are good, right?
Right.
That's, that might be a little old fashioned or whatever, but I am also acutely aware of the evil that exists in the world, and there are some very bad individuals and bad people out there. But I think they pale in comparison with regard to the percentage of good ones that are out there, and the culture in general. If you kind of looked at it on a spectrum, you're going to have things that are way over here on one side and way over here on the other side, and those sides generally have very loud voices. There's a few,
Hmm.
and then there's this culture in the middle, and this is kind of where I found myself coming in, but it's kind of unknown. It's not even a subculture. It's people trying to fit into, where do I fit into this culture? Because I
Right.
don't like what this guy's saying, and I can't relate to that. I don't get that at all. Like, this is weird. And by the way, why is he so pissed off at this guy that's way over here? And why are they so mad at one another? And what is
Right.
this about? Because that's a real turn off to me. That's not doesn't seem really productive. And by the way, I don't understand a thing they're talking about. So you have all these people in the middle that are kind of trying to figure it out and figure out, like, how do I fit in here without seemingly look like I'm part of one of these sides, and then look like a quote unquote weirdo or a fanatic, or
Right.
whatever word we want to associate with, negativity we want to associate with, being a gun owner or somebody
Right.
that enjoys shooting, or so forth. So um yeah, it's been the people, and it's been so positive. I have met and made so many friendships, and when I say friendships, I don't take that lightly. My circle is very small,
Right.
but the people that I know I can reach out to and count on to be honest up front with me, provide help if needed, make connections where needed, and just provide, quite frankly, just this might sound corny to people, but just love. Like,
Right.
they are just giving, loving people. It's been nothing short of astonishing, to be quite frank. And I recognize, for people looking outside that may be looking at it through a different lens, going, that sounds like a bunch of bullshit. These guys are wackos. I
Right.
totally get it, because there's plenty of those inside this culture.
Oh,
There's a lot
100%.
of them. Yeah. So
100%. There's there's people that I don't associate with inside of this community.
me too.
Just not my cup of tea.
Right.
But I think, speaking specifically with inside the competition community, no matter what the discipline is, like, that's where I found the most joy for me. Like, um, I don't want to say I was lost before I found firearms or anything like that. Sounds weird, but like, I have jumped from thing to thing to thing to thing my whole life, like trying to figure myself out. Like, you're a growing adult, you're trying to figure your crap out
Mm-hmm.
between the businesses and school and work and family and marriages and kids and all this other stuff. Like, though I spend a lot of time on this thing, like, besides my kid and my wife, this is what brings me the most joy in my life. Like, I'm going to a match on Saturday at my home range. I'm going to see a bunch of my buddies and make a bunch of contacts and create some content and have fun with the boys. The following weekend, I'm going to South Carolina and I'm staying at the farmhouse with a bunch of my friends. We all get air mattresses and stay in this farmhouse and hang out and cook and enjoy ourselves, go shoot the match, come back,
Mm-hmm.
BS and have more fun, right?
Right.
Like, I haven't found another thing where I can do that.
That's so interesting. Those have been some of my most positive experiences, and sort of the extended or the fully immersive, shooting experience, which you kind of just
Hmm.
described, where you go and you spend a weekend or a couple of days away. You don't have to do this all the time. Some people don't have access to do that or the ability to. You got family and things like that, but the that's where those friendships and those relationships get built, is in there. And what is the thing that's building it, that's bringing it together? People will say it's guns. It's not guns. It's the competition, it's the
Yep.
camaraderie, it's the learning, it's the challenging yourself to do hard things,
Yeah.
it's or something outside of your comfort zone, and being challenged, even with, in the distance shooting game, like the math problem, right?
Yep.
It's also being outside and being in nature. It's getting sun on your face and dirt on your hands,
Exactly.
and on your clothes. It is, yes, it's eating good food. It's sharing a meal with your buddies or with your dudes, right? And when that happens, you're also sharing other things. You're sharing all kinds of stuff, stories, emotions, challenges in life, victories in life, all that stuff. When you talk about community and culture, that's ultimately what I think people are seeking.
Right.
I just think they sometimes can get very distracted, or they get a very a skewed view of what that can actually be. But you just described, like in a nutshell, what some of the most positive experiences I have had have been like, just like you just said.
Right. Um, so that's the positive. Um, what's the biggest problem with the gun culture? And I think we kind of tipped on it there a little bit, but
Yeah, I think you kind of mentioned, like, you have all these different genres within the genre, within the space,
right,
right? And each one of those has, this is goes back to the podcast thing, and that is, like, what I find very interesting are the characters
right,
that sort of seemingly represent maybe these cultures within the
right,
within the subcultures within the space. And what was interesting to me when I first kind of entered it was not really understanding it, having thinking I did to some
right.
extent, but not really understanding it and trying to learn more about who these people were and why they were saying what they were saying, and why was, like I mentioned before, why is this guy over here so pissed at what this guy is saying? This is weird to me. Like,
Right.
they come from the same thing. Like, they both have the same, they wore the same beret, right? Or
Hmm.
they wore the same uniform, or they came from all that kind of stuff. So the problem that I found, 9 times out of 10, is it's a communication issue. I think a
Okay.
lot of times, that stems from ego,
There's none
and
of that in this community. I don't know what you're talking about.
ego and the unwillingness to check yourself on your own shit, if I'm being
Okay.
honest. And I think, that ego and that getting lost in that, uh breeds a lot of problems. And I think we see them all the time. They're pretty much right in front of us all the time. And I'm not saying
Right.
it's ego all the time, but if you asked me, like, I think that's kind of at the top of the list. If people could just kind of put that aside for a second and be a little bit more open-minded and objective about themselves first,
Right.
before they're doing that about before they're being judgmental or objective about whatever anybody else is doing, and they just looked introspectively. A lot of the stupid stuff that we see on a regular basis that ends up being very negative, I
Right.
think clears itself up very naturally.
Um, so what is the gun industry, not necessarily the culture, but what is the gun industry doing right?
Well, that's a big question, and it's interesting you're asking me that. I was at SHOT Show this year
Yep.
again. This is my second time. I did several interviews
It's
with some
so
folks.
fun, isn't it?
It
It's the
it,
greatest.
it is, like, a lot of people, talk negatively about it. I've done that too to some extent. It's not all awesome. It's a little
Yeah,
bit of,
right.
it's kind of that it's
There's
kind
some
of that
cringe in there. We'll
it's
get
kind
to
of that
that.
experience you just described, only it's like fueled by alcohol a lot of times, and
Uh-huh.
ridiculousness and debauchery and things like that. But and I mean that, I say that again tongue in cheek. I take CC with me when we go. We have a great time. We hang
Yep.
out. We probably have too many drinks, and I smoke too many cigars and all that stuff. But it's part of the experience. My point of that is I did have quite a few conversations, and that was the plan, to talk more about the industry and the business in and of itself of firearms,
Right.
uh not the training aspect so much, but more of a, like, what's going on in the industry, what are they doing right? Well, I think first, they're taking advantage of an opportunity, as people of America are recognizing that their Second Amendment rights may be a little bit more important to them now than they were, say, 10 years ago.
Right. I
And
would agree
so,
with that.
yeah, there's obviously a push to obtain firearms. We've got more firearms owners in the United States than we've ever had, and the amount of firearm sales that we've had in the last 3 or 4 years is astronomical in terms of,
Yep.
previous year over year. So you've got an industry now that's really trying to take advantage of that, and I think you're seeing, um, pieces or parts of the industry try to do a really good job at providing a really solid product to the American gun owner that they can be proud of and confident in when they put that in a customer's hands, that they haven't sold them, pardon my language, like a guaranteed piece of shit, in the
Oh,
immortal
you can
words of
say whatever
Tommy
you want on the
Tommy
show. That's
Boy.
fine.
Yeah, like what they're really spending time with the R&D. They're getting in front of the customer a little bit more now. And I want to be I'll circle let me circle back to this, but they're getting in front of the customer to get that feedback, to learn about what the customer needs, or meeting them where they are, finding out what they need, what they want, what's important to them, and they're making changes and they're developing a better product. And they're also trying to get it in the hands of as many people as they can. So they're
Right.
changing things up a little bit. Now, I'd say that's more of like sort of they may find this insulting, but I would look at it kind of like the mid-level companies.
Right.
Companies that come to mind for me would be companies like Noveski, Sons of
Yep.
Liberty. We start looking like rifle companies, Cobalt, Kinetics, and there's a lot of them, right?
Right.
There's a lot of them, but those are the companies that they're not the Daniel Defense, they are not the HKs, they are not the
Right.
SIGs, the Glocks, or whatever else. So I think what you're seeing in the industry is that they're doing well is those companies are kind of starting to make a little bit more noise. They're being supported a little bit more, I think, by a lot of the other mid-level companies. And so what you're kind of seeing is a while I've used this, well, I'll just use this brand, but like, does SIG really need to worry about what Staccato's doing right now?
No.
Probably not.
No.
But Staccato is continuing, like companies like Staccato, and again, that's what I'm regularly pulling or randomly pulling out, are starting to do some pretty cool stuff.
Exactly.
While some of these other companies continue to do the same thing over and over again, and I'm not saying that's bad, but they're also not meeting the customer where it is, and they
Right.
haven't been for a long time, and they're not maybe making the innovation and or the changes. Let's talk about things like quality control, or the
Right.
the quality of manufacturing, quality of materials for manufacturing. They've been cutting corners while other people within the industry are really trying not to do that, and they're having a tough time doing that too. They're having
Right.
a tough time keeping up. But what I see is that like probably a better quality product starting to come to the table, and people, they're doing a better job of uh, informing people of what that better quality product looks
Product
like.
is, yeah.
Yeah, and so people are being educated
Hmm.
about those products more than they ever were. What despite all the stuff that's going on out there, I think the education piece is getting much better. But as fast as it's growing, yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on out there that I have my druthers about. That's for sure.
So the next question is, where is the gun industry missing the mark?
So many things.
Give me your top three.
Yeah, I think the one of the things is there's this, what you're seeing is conglomerations forming
Okay.
of bigger companies, and I I don't know if this is them missing the mark. This is them attempting to make money.
Right.
But I think what that means is they will miss the mark because this never ends well. It just
Right.
doesn't. So
When you
that's
chase the money, the product goes to shit and it just doesn't turn out well.
yeah, no, it doesn't. The other thing is I don't think the industry is doing a good job in talking about or in fighting the fights.
Okay.
Fighting the fight that we're fighting right now to protect,
Right.
again, the Second Amendment, which is there to protect our already God-given right to defend ourselves, um, our life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. A lot of people making money and on the product and the idea of the Second Amendment.
Right.
I don't see these big companies coming together to advocate for the Second Amendment and the things that need to be done in order to protect it. So I think they're missing
Right.
out on that, and you better be careful
Yeah.
because you're seeing the industry get squeezed. Um, yeah, and then I think the last thing is what I'm seeing is an ignoring of the customer by a good majority of the sort of the larger industry, which goes back to what I was saying before in terms of the
Right.
conglomerations that are coming together. I think there's just a lot of shit that's just being produced as a means to make a buck. Like, who asked for that, man? Like, who asked for that
I
product right there?
literally said that. I literally said that the other day. Uh, and it was from one of the big companies. Like it made its debut at SHOT Show, and it's like,
It's like, what
okay,
is
that's
this, man?
like it's a remake of something that was out at SHOT Show 7 years ago, that company is no longer around, you pretty much produce the exact same thing. What purpose does that item serve? Did you need to
Yeah,
just come out with something,
it's way behind.
have a new SKU number?
Yeah,
Like,
I think the industry is way behind on that. That I was having this conversation with Gabe Cabrera from sorry, Cobalt Kinetics, and we were talking about, why is this happening? Like, why do we keep seeing this, and why the hell is I mean, are they actually making money on this? There's a consumer out there buying this,
right.
$600 piece of shit, or whatever it is. Like, and apparently there are,
Yeah,
but
because it's got a fancy name on it.
because it says whatever brand X, right?
Yep.
And I gotta have that, and that's a thing in the industry. I don't think it's a problem. I think it's something we just need to be aware of. Like, people are going
Right.
to do that, right? It's much like the auto
I've been
industry.
guilty of it.
Yes, yeah, I'm sure. Look, I've done that with other things in my life too. I just don't do that with guns. Might be a good time to put in this. I'm a freedom guy, right?
Right.
I'm not. I love training with my firearms and having fun and tinkering with them and whatever. I'm not really a gun guy. Like,
Right.
I don't have a million guns. I don't need 50 guns. I'm not a collector. I don't have
Right.
anything. I have some stuff that has come to me over years, but
Right.
like, I'm not out there searching to purchase new firearms that I'm not going to run all the time. And
Right.
what's all the time for me? I already told you I'm pretty restricted on what I can do. So I don't need that many.
Exactly.
So just going back to that, I think, there's things within like the industry that they're really challenged by. Like, one, a lot of these companies just come and go very fast.
Yep.
And with that, it's gobble it up, and then they leave kind of this wake of, I don't want to say destruction, but just kind of bad taste in people's
Right.
mouths. And what did you really contribute? You didn't. You just took from the industry, you took from the consumer's pocketbook, whatever. You didn't really give back. So that's a problem. The
It's like a
sales
boat
process.
going through the water that's leaking oil. Like,
Yeah,
you came,
that's
you
a
made
really,
some you came some
God,
way, you made some waves, and then you left a bunch of shit on the
yeah.
surface.
You didn't do anything good, right? Like, you
Right.
had fun, you maybe made a little bit of money, but you made a mess doing it, and somebody else is left there to clean it up. So
Yeah.
that's one thing. I think another thing is like, so I think the sales process for a lot of um for most companies is flawed. That is, like, you've got the the whole process of making the sale, like customer acquisition, understanding what that looks like, is flawed. And I think a good deal of that might have to do with the fact that the marketing is flawed in a big
Okay.
way.
Yeah.
You were cut off from, typical marketing
Yeah, I
structures.
was gonna
And
say marketing's probably their biggest hurdle is because you
so,
can't use TV ads, you can't use social medias, you can't
nope.
advertise where everybody's eyeballs are at.
So what's the alternative? The alternative ends up being, let's go to the influencer. And this brings us all the way back to culture.
Yep.
So now, yeah, so here we are with the culture piece again, because now we're throwing money at people to promote a product that have no connection to any of the things that we talked about before, just in
Right.
terms of, the importance of the Second Amendment, what it means to them, what's the intention behind this, why am I saying what I'm saying. It gets messy pretty quick, and then that leaks out into, the world, and you get some, quite frankly, dipshit that's saying something, and then that group or that entity or whatever that is attacking the Second Amendment and wants it to go away completely and ruin people in its wake of trying to do
Yeah.
that, gets a hold of that, and then they use that against the those good law abiding, well put together citizens that are just trying to be, they want to be left alone.
Yeah.
and, and they
100%.
don't and they don't want to be lumped in with that category. So
And
that was a long way around that question, but
yeah, and we kind of
got me on a
talked
soapbox.
about it earlier this week where they um they'll somebody's famous or hot in social right now, they'll pay them for a booth appearance. That guy will say it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. Meanwhile, he doesn't know shit about dick, and you like he has outed himself to be 100% dishonest.
100%. That right there is going back to, some of the problems with the culture and going back to pop culture. That is a one of the biggest problems in the gun industry or in the firearms industry, hands down, whether it comes to firearms instruction, product, that being the gun itself or
Mm-hmm.
any of the accessories. that it's a consumer that's going off somebody else's word about buying that product. I mean, just go back to like the old. I mean, look at like sports teams, and the
Yep.
guy stands up and he goes, "Well, I chew Red Man because Red Man, makes me feel
Yeah.
this way and it gives me that extra pep in my step that I need. Everybody should be choosing Red Man." And so, I would say that's the unaware, but also uh, non-responsible or non-committal consumer goes, well, if so and so's using it, then I should be using it too. And by buying this, in this case with firearms, I've now purchased the thing that now makes me capable, right? And I'm a more capable citizen because
Right.
now I'm like, whoever, influencer X, and he says this is the thing, and I watch him do all these things, so I have it, and here we are.
Yeah.
Now we're done.
Now
And
I'm
no,
now I'm safe. Now I'm protected. Now I'm I'm able to be more lethal. Need the circumstance arise.
which is rooted in zero rationale, right?
Yeah.
And quite
Right.
frankly, idiocy. But unfortunately, it is part of the process, I think, of entering into the space because of the vastness of what's out there, particularly with firearms. Is you're going to have to probably make a couple four, five, $600 mistakes
Oh yeah.
before
100%.
you realize that and course correct. Uh, and again, the question should be, does it have to be that way? I don't know if it has to be, but I kind of think it does. I
Yeah.
think people have to learn those lessons, and more importantly, they have to commit to something to then learn
To
the
learn
next thing.
exactly.
You gotta buy the thing, then you gotta go dent primers with it, and until you know, like, yeah, that's not really the gun for me, and all the reasons why, and
Yep.
those are vast. So
Yeah. Exactly.
put you right back at the top of the funnel or the rabbit hole, whatever, however you
Of
want to look at
chasing or investing or looking into
it.
looking into the next thing. Um,
100%.
what what is cringe in the industry right now, or cringe in the culture right now?
Um, I mean, I think we just kind of answered a little bit of that, and
Yeah.
just kind of watching the influencer thing. One of the things that bothers me a lot within the industry is the keyboard warrior. I think is a problem and a challenge. That's just social media in general, but I think people have a tough time separating the like what's okay versus what isn't okay in terms of propping people up or tearing people down. The
Right.
cringiest thing, and I'll just put it this way: the cringiest thing I see is this. I don't know, this drive that people feel that, or have, to tear somebody else down as a means to make themselves look better or even drive their business.
Right.
I think
Okay.
that is like the most immature high school or junior high school locker room drama bullshit that you could possibly be doing, and I just don't get it. I
Right.
cannot connect with it. It's just immature. Which, people go like, whatever, dude, you're old. I, yeah, maybe. I just think it's immature. I think it's a waste of time. I think it gets nobody anywhere, and I think it says a lot more about you that's doing it than the person that you're saying shit about. And the fact that consumers continue to buy from people like that, and believe, or like, follow, share their shit when they're doing stuff like that constantly, um, it boggles my mind. I do understand it to a certain extent, and again, like, everybody is at some level, you have to call people out on shit, but
Right.
when it's just this constant, like, you're wrong all the time. Well, if you're wrong, you're wrong. That's fine. Let's have a discussion about it.
Right.
It's just, if we're having a conversation about it, you're just saying, well, you're wrong and I know better because I have X piece of paper on the wall. I trained with so and so. I wore
Right.
this insignia. I spent 24 years in law enforcement. Whatever the hell you're trying to do, like, that's not an answer, dude. Like, just,
Right.
let's have a discussion about it. So that's the cringiest thing to me. And it's the industry's full of it, just
Oh
full
yeah.
of it all the time.
100%. Um, oh, that was cringe. So, uh, in my course, they refer to high culture and low culture, or like highbrow, lowbrow, in terms of something that is considered to be almost elitist to where lowbrow would be your middle class or lower socioeconomical uh,
Mhm.
um, individuals.
Mhm.
Can you provide any examples of what would be considered or highbrow culture and then lowbrow culture within gun culture?
Yeah, I think, when you start looking at things like the NRA,
Okay.
they're certainly under a lot of scrutiny right now. I think when you look at that, who those people are that are influential and quote unquote representing the best interests of, you know,
Yep.
the Second Amendment and those folks. This is the same people that are trying to maybe um advocate for their Browning shotguns, right? So they can go out and
Right.
bird hunt at their duck club or whatever, their bird club, but also at this in the same breath going, hey, but yeah, we're not going to stand up for the rights of somebody else who is out on the range shooting a carbine, right?
Right.
That, to me, that's highbrow.
Right.
And I think it's a boys club, and it has
Yeah.
been for a long time. And I'm specifically, if it sounds like I'm bad mouthing the NRA, I am. I think they've done a lot of great things.
Okay.
I'm anxious to see what this change of leadership is, but I think this sitting on the tower and
Right.
looking down on all the peasants and the people that may not think the same way as you, but have the same rights. And we covered this at the beginning, and not supporting that and being upfront about it. I think that's very highbrow. I think there's another piece of this too, and that is the impression that people get that or giving that gives the consumer an impression that they have to have this uber expensive, all the gear, firearm to be capable,
Right.
and or be part of the club.
Right.
And I think there's a lot of that. The people are oftentimes, it's like, what's the sexiest firearm? Who's posting the sexiest picture of the thing? Of the $10,000, bolt gun. Like,
Right.
come on, man, you don't need that. You don't need that, but I think it keeps
Mhm.
people out
Or you
of
go,
the.
what's that shotgun company that has like the $500,000 shotguns at Shot, and the whole booth says "Do not touch." Like
I'm not sure which one that is, but there's a lot of ones out there.
there's
But
a lot of them out. Yeah.
there's a lot of them out there. I mean, we start looking at some of the, and it generally is around like quote unquote hunting companies,
Right.
those that are more in the outdoors space, if you will.
Right.
Or it's very highbrow. It's very much a rich man's game.
Yes.
And look, I like nice things, like, but and I'm not bad mouthing. You can charge whatever the fuck you want. It's a free market, man. Like, you do,
Exactly.
if people are gonna pay it, fine. Like, I don't have any desire to have a Ferrari. I don't like it.
Right.
Just I don't have any desire. Like, they're
Yeah.
cool to look at. It's good enough for me. But at the same time, like, don't snub your nose because I drive a Chevy.
Yeah.
It-
Like
like,
I don't want a Ferrari. I want a camper van. Like
yeah, exactly. Like, I
yeah.
have my wants and needs too, the things that I like doing. So yeah, there's very much a lot of the highbrow stuff that goes on in this industry. It can get quite annoying.
Yeah. So what would be considered some lowbrow stuff?
Uh I think when you start getting down to, well, you mentioned socioeconomic classes. I've had some very interesting experiences and talks with folks, and like experiences out on the range with people in some different environments where I feel like there are some subcultures that you mentioned that want to kind of do their own thing. Um, I don't really know the best way to describe this. I'll just say this: it can be very clicky, and
Okay.
it can be very clicky and very much, you're not part of this club because you don't
Yeah.
shoot the right gun. And it's not about how much it costs, but it's just a thing, right? Or you're not wearing the right clothes, or you don't support the right people, or you're not edgy enough.
Yeah.
You're not
You're
like,
not in the clique. Like you weren't in the military. Okay, you're not in the clique. Oh, you're not wearing
perfect
$400 cry
example.
pants to the range. You're not in the
Perfect
clique.
example. Perfect example. Both of those spectrums I think are ridiculous.
Yeah.
But that said, yeah, I think it's it.
Um, so you mentioned the NRA. So
Yeah.
one of the questions was, does the NRA represent the culture?
No.
Yeah.
I think it represents some of the culture, but I think when we look at the word
Right.
culture, it is very broad.
Right.
And I think the NRA culture represents the NRA culture.
Right.
And a lot of people I think will relate to this, and I'll say it. I don't have a problem doing it. That is, I think it's a lot of FUDs, and I think it's a lot of people with a lot of money that don't necessarily want to, or care to, or will associate with the greater culture.
Population.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, the greater population of people. It's vast. And again, I just went back to this. Like the Second Amendment is protecting all it is there to protect the guaranteed rights of every American citizen. That's what it is. So if you're not doing that and advocating for that on a regular basis, 24/7, then what are you doing?
Right.
That's, as an advocacy group versus a lot of other groups that are doing a lot of cool stuff right now, and they're coming at it from a different approach, a
Yeah.
little bit different attitude.
Like I couldn't think of the name the other night, but I was listening to another podcast and it came up, but like USCCA,
Mhm.
like one of the cool things that they're doing, that Kenzie talked about is like they're creating their own formal um certified instructor program so that, you know, to teach a concealed weapons license class, you don't have to be an NRA certified instructor. You can be a USCCA, certified instructor. And if we can get the states to buy off on their certification, their accreditation, like just opens up the opportunities that take a little bit of money out of the NRA's pocket. Yeah.
Yep.
But like you don't get to have a monopoly on representing Americans.
Yeah, and we're seeing the problem with that because specifically here in California, the California wiped out the accreditation for the NRA CCW instructors, right? So they
Hmm.
basically said you can't teach it anymore; it's not valid here. So that was one of the great things that NRA did was provided, and it was all about safety, uh, uh, training. It was about awareness, safety around firearms
Hmm.
handling, those kinds of things. And then there was the instruction piece, albeit, you know, I have my druthers about a lot of the things that still exist there and need
Right.
to change. But they did a really great job with that. And then they provided insurance, right? And so for instructors, for ranges, for people within the industry, there was a lot of that. And again, at the end of the day, everybody's making the money on the back end of this at the NRA,
Right.
and the consumer is willingly giving it to them because of those things.
Right.
But at the same time, what they weren't doing was protecting any of that. At the end of the day,
Exactly.
we just kind of seen what's happened. So going back to the free market piece, yes, USCCA is doing the right thing, and I think a lot of other people should be trying to do the same. Like
Right.
there is, how many gun owners do we have? And I
Oh,
don't think you can even count right now,
I
right?
don't
In
think you
America,
could.
I don't think you could, right? How many guns do we have? You definitely can't count that. So there's
There's
plenty
more
of
guns in
pie.
America than there are people.
There's plenty of pie. So, you protecting everything or playing everything tight to the chest, and or saying we are the end all be all at whatever level, whatever organization, is ridiculous when it comes to, particularly when it comes to firearms and training and a gear and any
Hmm.
of that stuff. Yeah.
So now I wrote this question a while ago. I didn't write this question about you. Um, thoughts thoughts on people from other industries coming in to the culture to bolster their own personal brand. And I'm not saying that's what you did or you're coming into this space to bolster your brand, but you definitely saw people doing that at SHOT Show, right?
Yep.
Um, they come into the industry and they take some pictures with some battlefield arms,
Yep.
bullpup ARs and stuff like that, and like, oh, throw up the shocker. Oh, I'm hanging out at SHOT Show XYZ,
Yep.
and now people look at them and like, oh, he knows something about guns when it couldn't be farther from the truth, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
SHOT Show is an opportunity for celebrities to come to an event, take some cool pictures, get some make a few connections maybe, and then dip out, but not actually be necessarily in the culture.
There's a ton of that. And so a couple of things. First off, I really appreciate the question. Um, and I have a couple thoughts here. One is there's a ton of money here. There's just a
Hmm.
ton of money in this. And so anytime you have that, you're going to have, people flying in to trying to get some of that money, and other people that are trying to fly people in to help them get more of that money. So
Right.
I think that's part of the thing. Um, yeah, you see a lot of that. And I think you have to be able to recognize it, when you see it. Um, that's a tough thing for somebody that's coming in. At the same time, I look at it and I go, hey, if I don't know. I love this guy. I think he's great. Like Chuck Liddell, as an example,
Yep.
like
That's
the
that's the
MMA.
exact name I thought when I said
Okay,
Battlefield
all
Arms,
right.
because
So like he's connected in a couple different ways to the industry. He's
yep,
not he's not going out there shooting. Go back to pop culture. Who doesn't know who that guy is? Through
exactly.
film, right, and obviously through fighting in the UFC and all those kind of things. You're talking household brand names, right?
Right.
So he comes in and maybe he makes a little bit of money off of this. He's helping somebody else make a little bit of money off of this. And at the end of the day, like, is that a bad thing? So I'm going to compare and contrast that. It's like you might look at that. That's kind of innocent. It's Chuck,
Right.
doing his thing, whatever. Again, I love Chuck. But I think another way to look at this is like, what about Lucas? At
Hmm.
Lucas Botkin out at a T-Rex. Like, where did he come into this thing? And,
Yep.
is he a celebrity? Did he need to be a celebrity? And what was he bringing in? Did he just see an opportunity and, took some of the little bit of following and things that he had from the things that he was doing before? And is he exploiting that? And is he doing is this bad for the culture, the community, or for the Second Amendment? I'm going to say no to both of those things. I think those are good things. They bring people in. I mean, if Chuck's bringing more people into the industry and exposing them to firearms culture, firearms safety, safe firearms handling, firearms training, and that means people get to make money off of that while other people get trained and they're armed and they're more capable, safe, and dangerous, quite frankly, citizens.
Right.
um, I'm all for that. What I don't like is a lot of the bullshit that comes along with that. Now, as it
Hmm.
relates to me and kind of where I came into this, that was the thing that I had the challenges with when I was coming in, looking at it, going, look at all this wild stuff that's happening in this industry.
Yeah.
And it is exactly the same thing that has happened and is currently happening in the fitness industry. So I saw it all going on, and I'm like, look, I when I started the podcast, it had nothing to do with firearms. Like
Okay.
I did the podcast for a year before, 6 months, almost 2 year before we did anything on the firearms training stuff. We do 2 drops a week, right? We do a health and fitness,
Yep.
workout, nutrition related podcast on Mondays. And then on Fridays, it's something related more to the preparedness space. And it's not just
Right.
firearms for anybody that's hearing this for the first time. We get into a lot of different discussions with a lot of different people.
You guys
There is
go
some,
deep on a lot of different topics.
yeah.
Very
So
deep.
we try to. And so that was the thing is where the podcast got started on this end was me seeking out conversations with smarter people that weren't doing this weird stuff. I was like, look, I feel like this guy has something to say. I like the message. This seems right to me as a consumer that was sort of new to the training side of things and to all the stuff that the firearms industry had to offer, which I'd been fairly disconnected from.
Right.
Own firearms, didn't train with them very often.
Hmm.
Probably an overinflated self confidence of my ability, and then went through a situation in my life where I was like, oh shit, that was the oh
Yeah.
shit moment. Like I got some work to do. Like I need to go out there and figure this out. So I was figuring it out. I was looking for these conversations and I was avoiding all of that other bullshit. And I was like,
Hmm.
hey man, like can I have this conversation with you? And I started to have that conversation. So my entry into this was like having these conversations, and the people I was having the conversations with oftentimes were like somebody who's very popular on social media. This was all happening during COVID. Where else was I going to
Right.
find it? Right? Where was I going to
Yeah.
have access to it? And they were telling me, like, man, this is a really good conversation. You're asking really good questions. I wish I got more of these questions. Like, interesting. I wonder if other people would be interested in listening to these discussions. And
Right.
that's essentially how it started. Again, I
Yeah.
have no skin in this game. I'm not making it. I'm not making any money. I'm not making any money or a
Right.
living off of this. So I've tried to keep it authentic and not take my any trust that I've built with anybody, any authenticity, that I'm viewed with for granted, and I never want to mess that up. So
Right.
what I see people doing is I see them reaching because they didn't enter it with authenticity. They
Right.
maybe lacked a little integrity, and at the end of the day, their intention was to make as much money as they could, and I think that's where things go
Yeah.
awry. That's where it
And
gets a little weird.
like having the genuine conversation. So like we're having a genuine conversation. We happen to agree on some stuff. Like my conversation with my friend that isn't in this camp, we agreed on some stuff.
Right?
Like socially, economically, like when it comes to we kind of got on the topic of immigration there for a second and like
Hmm?
the difference between asylum seeking and the actual process of immigration in general. Like she said it. She's very liberal. She is very much in that
Hmm?
camp. I am not in that camp, but I have some ideas that would be considered definitely on the
Hmm?
liberal side. Like there should be a safety net, but I followed it up with not a safety hammock, right?
Okay. Yep. I'm with
Like,
you.
yeah, if somebody's having a hard time on the humanity level, we should be helping each other out, but we
That's very
shouldn't be
basic.
like taking from, one person to give to the other person because they don't want to put in effort XYZ. So like I'm a little nervous to put that episode
That kind
out.
of content. Yeah.
I'm gonna do it, but like I mean, I don't have a massive following, but like I think people are going to be surprised by some of my thoughts and opinions, but like last night she mentioned high capacity magazines. And I asked her, I was like, hey, what's high capacity? She's like, if it sticks out below the bottom of the gun. I was like, okay. I was like, in my world, there's standard capacity and there's high capacity. I was like, for example, the Sig Sauer Legion holds 21 rounds. That's it. That's what it comes with. So is that standard or is that high? She's like, shit, yeah, that's high. I was like, but it's what it was manufactured with. And I was like, you go to California and you can only have 10 rounds, right? 10 and 1 or whatever the rule is. It's been a while since I've lived there, but like where where do we draw that line? That goes back to your local city municipality, your county, your state representatives, your governor making these rules and laws. California has definitely done that, and now they're getting a lot of pushback on those laws, right? So in a weird way, it's we're like I'm about freedom, but I'm also about like taking care of people in the you humane way. And like we were talking about like the mental health aspect of it from like her being a public
Mhm.
school educator, and she's like, like I want to talk to the kid. I don't want to like shoot the kid. And I was like, granted, like when we're talking about arming teachers, like yeah, like there's a time for the conversation, but you don't bring a knife to a gunfight. You don't bring words to an active shooter. That's not. She's like, oh, I agree and I understand, but like there's other problems we have to address first, right?
Yeah, I totally get it. I mean, you're when you start to cross into those kinds of conversations, and we try to keep them fairly open, but also we try to keep them very focused. Like, I'm not interested in being controversial. I understand
Right,
that some of what we might talk about is controversial for some people. I'm not interested in pigeonholing or backing anybody into a corner to,
right,
sensationalize anything that's going on. It it's all starts and finishes with a very genuine conversation, but and sometimes in there you do touch on subject matter and that can make people uncomfortable, or so I'll just say make them uncomfortable or give them some type of an impression that they can run with. And as humans, we like to finish the story. So I heard a little something and then I extrapolated this into something else, which
right,
couldn't sometimes couldn't be any further from the truth or where that person is coming from. That's why I think the long format stuff works better, because it gives people, then, if you're sitting on Twitter, X, whatever we're calling it now,
right.
Instagram, whatever, Facebook, whatever platforms you're sitting on, and that's where you're forming your opinions about another person or another thing. That's I'm challenged by that. Like, I think that's a reference point, maybe, to
Yep.
go explore things a little bit more. And that is again, going back to the podcast, that's what it did. It's like, it's seeing like, oh, I'm seeing this, but I'm curious. Like, I have more questions. I wonder if this person would be interested in talking about it. It didn't start on a podcast. It started through
Yeah.
DMs or going to a training session or something like that. But um, look, going back to things like what's going on at the border, what's going on with sanctuary cities, what's going on with basically sort of, I would just call it like welfare things to
Hmm.
folks. Who's a citizen, who isn't, who's seeking asylum versus who is just an opportunist. Um,
Right.
I have very clear thoughts on those things. I think the problems that we can all agree on are very simple, and
Yeah.
they're very, they're not partisan issues, man. Like, we have homelessness, we have crime, and between those, there is drug addiction, there is
Hmm.
clear psychiatric crisis going on out there,
100%.
and right, we have those things, and we have to address those, and we can't just address those things. And this is where I get challenged in these conversations. We can't be continually trying to address these things through the standpoint of principles and values.
Right.
These things need to be handled pragmatically, and for that we have to have a real conversation. We have to start breaking some things down. And if all we're doing is talking about, well, these people need help, okay, but where does that start and where does it stop? Like,
Yeah.
and I think what that creates is like, and this is what we're seeing, I think, across the board, is it creates a magnetism to more of it, right? And
Right.
more of it and more of it. And it's where I think you encourage certain behaviors. And going back to the principles and values thing, I think where people are, and I live in I live smack dab in the middle of the Silicon Valley, man.
Yeah.
So I'm in California. I'm in a bubble. Then I'm in another bubble, which is Northern
Hmm.
California. Then I'm in an even deeper bubble, which
Which
is
is the
which is the
valley.
heart, which is the valley, right? And all the things, and the amount of influence that is here on all the things
Uh-huh.
that we're talking about, including the platform that we're speaking on tonight, which I can go outside my door, throw a rock, and hit, right?
Yeah.
This company that's hosting this platform. But my point of this is um, even as, I would just say, you said the word liberal. Let's just say, as liberal can get. I stare at it every day
Oh,
here,
100%.
at a very deep level. Even they can agree, or that party or that side can agree that what we're looking at is a problem.
Yeah.
And it's pouring out into the streets. It's in their front yards. It literally,
Yeah.
it's an issue, and it's costing them their quality of life. It's costing them
Property
financially.
value.
Yeah, lots of things. It's
Yeah.
it's it's affecting their souls, because going back to like what we're seeing in the humanity, at some point, like this compassion thing,
Hmm.
going back into the principles and values, ultimately what we're seeing is that's turning into cruelty. At
Yeah.
some point, there has to be you must do something to change this. Otherwise, it it's terrible. It
Yeah.
crushes my soul when I see what's going on. I guess at the end of the day, getting off my soapbox, it's I'd like to see some behavior change.
Hmm.
And it's going to take behavior change in order to change our problems.
Yep.
And again, no matter what side of the party line you might be standing on, at the end of the day, I think most people can agree we have a problem, and talking about it isn't fixing it. It's just
Correct.
getting worse. So, but the most important thing that people do is do what we're doing now, and like what you did with your other guests. You have to get together and talk about it. It
Yeah.
can't be on a keyboard. Don't pretend, well, because I voted for so and so, this is going to fix it. Ugh. It
Yeah. That doesn't work. It's,
People change this, not
yeah.
government. All right, not government.
Exactly. Um,
Yeah, sorry, you
so
got me on a soapbox there, man.
yeah, no worries. I know that you are deeply affected.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for my listeners that don't listen to Scott's show, one, I encourage you to. It'll be linked in the show notes. But I mean, you were a victim of a business, not a home invasion, but a business invasion. Somebody broke in and stole some of your merchandise. Your camper
Many
van that
times.
many times, your
Yeah.
camper van that you travel around with CC and go to these different places, that was caught on fire and burned to the ground by the transient
Mm-hmm.
issue that is running rampant in
Mhm.
that area. Like, you may not have been a victim of firearms violence or something like that, but you're a victim of perpetual violence based on the state of the culture that that area of the country is in right now, and it
You're
sucks.
not wrong. It is a product of poor policy,
Yeah,
of old dated ideas of planning and promises with that were based on lies and poor execution with nothing really to support. And again, I will just say this: I've lived here for a very long time. I have a lot of friends that, from a I don't deal with politics very much. I just try not to have those conversations. I'll have conversations with you. Can we have this conversation without involving politicians or politics?
right,
That's the probing that I generally do with people. So what you said there is very much true. I really feel like that, and I'm never going to take the victim mentality, but I got to
right,
tell you, the consequence of these things basically is people that are just trying to provide a service to the community, like I'm doing here, to employ
right,
people so that they can do the same and make a living and put food on the table, and at the end of the day, feel some level of fulfillment for helping people literally change their lives. That is
right.
what we do here, right? Now that
Yep.
might sound a little idealistic and whatever, but I've been doing this long enough, and I'm telling you, like, I feel like what we do here is important for people. It's not
Yeah.
just swipe your card, come in and work out. That's not what we do here. We have very intimate relationships to help people with their very, very personal and very specific challenges, whatever those happen to be, physically, emotionally, physiologically, whatever. That all comes through here. So when you see stuff like this happening, and you just mentioned a few things that have happened to us, that's the tip of the iceberg. I'll just be honest, like, my balls are sore, man. I am tired of being kicked in the balls.
Yeah.
That my business was shut down for a year during COVID, right?
Yeah.
Kid was pulled out of school for 2 years. There's damage done
Yeah.
for poor decision making. And I get it, like, oh, in some cases, like, hey, we have to do something here and we have to figure this out. And like, but at some point you have to go, hey, we messed up. Like,
Hmm.
we got to make a change, because guys like me or people like me can't continue to survive like this.
Yeah.
It's a thing. So
It's non-sustainable.
yeah. So again, am I a victim? I don't know. Like, I'm not gonna say that.
Yeah.
But have I been hurt? Yeah. Like, my balls are sore, real
Yeah.
sore. My pocketbook hurts too.
Oh, I bet. Like, knowing how much those vans cost, yes, I'm sure
Look,
that.
insurance ultimately is going to take care of the van. Like, insurance will ultimately do that. It's still going to cost me money. It's not taking
Yeah.
care of all of it, but it's going to take care of that. And that's the thing. People are like, oh, it's insurance. Okay, yeah, insurance is going to take care of it. It's fine if it happened once,
Yeah.
dude. The dude that broke in here a week ago tonight, the dude that broke in here a week ago tonight. It's not the first time.
Yeah. Exactly.
So that's where I started having a little bit of an issue with the compassion thing, and
A
the
hundred percent.
and let's just be a little bit more understanding about how tough it might be for that guy out on the street. You know what? My compassion has
Sorry.
limits, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Exactly. Um, let's bring it back to the main topic. So
yeah, man.
we've talked about different types of personalities. What are three different um personality types inside the gun culture? So we've kind of touched on it. You said FUD earlier, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are some other personality types that you see within the culture?
Well, you nailed that one. Like,
Right,
so the FUD is definitely got up there. If you're going to talk gun culture, FUD is a thing.
right.
Um,
And
uh,
real quick, for those that don't know, FUD it's used as like a joking term, somewhat derogatory term for the old guy that you only need one gun and it's a shotgun, or if somebody's breaking in
it's
your
a
house, go out on the
it's a
balcony and fire
1911
two
won two world
blasts.
wars. Yeah.
Yeah, and 1911 won two world wars, like that whole thing. So like
Who
it's
thinks they know everything they need to know, and they are God's gift to the world with regards to firearms.
yeah,
Yeah. So there's definitely that. I think there's also the personality type, I guess, that's like one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum is the egomaniac that is trying to extract from the community, right? And
okay,
and that's all they're doing. and
Okay.
they're doing it at the expense of the consumer, at their own integrity, values, and whether that's trying to earn a buck teaching a class that's bullshit, or sell a product that's bullshit, or represent somebody's product that's bullshit and they know it and they're doing it anyway and taking money. Unfortunately, that is a big part of this culture.
Okay.
And so it's buyer beware, consumer beware on that end. I think somewhere in the middle, um, well, in I think somewhere in the middle, in terms of what people see, there is a very motivated, um, understanding, intelligent, and very practical person in the middle, and they are trying to do one of two things. I think they're either trying to be better, right, and be
Hmm.
prepared, and be responsible, and train to utilize their firearm if need be, store their firearm, right, teach other people about it, educate people, have conversations about those kind of things. I mean that on all those things. Be intelligent and try to be understanding and be patient and do those things, and bring people to the table, bring more people to the table to have a more reasonable conversation. I think, like on the consumer end of that, those people tend to be a little bit quiet
Okay.
because of the battles that go on. But on the instruction side, are those people that are trying to influence things in a very good way. In some way, they're motivated help givers, and what they really want to do is give people really good information.
Right.
Um, and so how do you personify that? What does that look like? Um, I think I think it's just a good-hearted, well-intentioned, educated, red-blooded American, right? And they
Okay.
come in all shapes and sizes,
Yep.
and it's a person that at some level is very practical. I don't know if there's a word to describe this, because it seems like the the personality types have all kind of turned negative. I mean, just open up social media and it's
Yeah.
just meme after meme after meme after meme,
Yep.
and we're all laughing at them, and
Yep.
sometimes we
100%.
repost them, and I think there's a time and a place for memes, but I think there's a person I think the maybe the personality type is a person that's trying not to be a meme.
Right.
maybe that's the Maybe that
Yeah.
is the
I mean,
personality
for
type.
sure.
I'm trying not to be a walking meme, and
Yeah.
that is a difficult uh, road to navigate with all the stuff that's coming from all the different directions. Because it seems if you plant a flag in
Yep.
anything, whether it's PRS, USPSA, like
Yeah.
a particular brand, you're gonna get roasted somehow. You just got to
Yeah.
kind of be ready for it. So yeah, I think it's a person that's trying not to be a meme, the
Okay.
unmeme.
Um, any hot takes or opinions? We've had a lot of them on the show, but like any hot takes on gun culture in America right now? Like, you were able to attend SHOT this year. Anything like that you saw from walking around or your interactions or your conversations? Any hot takes on um the culture at the moment?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think everybody, like, if you attended that show, or if you've spent any time in this community, and again, I've been in it for a few years now, and trying to understand it a little bit. I have maybe a little bit different perspective on it, but my perspective is this: nothing's changed. It's still the same stuff. A gun is a gun is a gun. A pistol is a
Yep.
pistol. Right? A rifle is a rifle. Carbine is carbine. However we're looking at these things, I don't think there's a lot of there's nothing new out there.
Right.
It's the same stuff. It's just somebody's put a new paint job on it, and
Hmm.
or they've added a solar panel to it or whatever. But I don't think
Yep.
there's, like, from an innovation perspective, I don't think there's a lot of innovation out there that really matters, makes sense, or is really really important to even talk about. What I think you're seeing is you're seeing people kind of step back, and I think I mentioned this before with maybe some of those mid-level like rifle companies, and that is they're just trying to improve upon the product that they have so that they can feel really good about putting that product in people's hands. I think they're being very challenged with being able to continue to do that in a
Yeah.
way that keeps it at a price point and keeps their lights on, and all the
Yeah.
things they want to do. But I think that's where I hope the consumer comes into this, and can more quickly realize kind of the realities of what's going on out there as they're making their buying decisions, and the part of it is I think there are people out there. There's many more people out there that are beginning to educate um, through whether that's training on a range or teaching through social media, podcasting, writing books or whatever else. I think like that is a real place that people should be exploring in that educational space. There's some really good examples of folks out there that I think are doing a really good job with that. And so again, going back to like what's the hotness that's going on at SHOT Show. I don't get that fired up
Yeah.
about it, man. I really don't. For me, I go for the people, and I love to
Right.
see people thriving and doing what they do really, really, really well, and just being married to that, and nearly all those people just want that for the people that they're in front of or work with. They want the
Right.
same thing. So
Okay.
there's hope. Like with all the nonsense that happens, man, there's so many good things that are happening, and we should probably be talking about that more than we are. There's a lot of negativity and a lot of like, God dang, we're still doing
Right.
this.
Yeah.
There's some really good stuff happening. It's just, and it's there's good people doing it.
So with that, um where does the industry need to be headed?
Oh gosh. Well, I think I said it up front when we were talking maybe about the NRA stuff. Like we have a fight on our hands.
Yeah.
There are people, there are entities that want to take your guns away. They're going to tell you that they don't, but they do.
Right.
Uh, that is very clear. I live in the state that is ground zero for this business.
Yeah.
And in a lot of ways, the state has been very successful at making that a reality.
Yeah.
And I
I
get that
mean,
question a lot
and you've
about how do
had
you
a
do it
show
there.
where you talked to, I don't remember the exact individual, but talked about all the crazy firearms laws that have come into California, even since I left in 2018. Um, but when COVID happened, you guys talked about like, oh, I need to go buy a gun. Wait, I gotta wait 10 days. Wait, I
Yeah,
can only buy one gun every 30 days.
yeah.
Wait, I
People learn
can't
really
buy ammo
fast.
online. I have to have it sent to my FFL. Like, what are all these crazy laws? And that is so foreign to
Mm-hmm.
anybody that's outside of the state of California. I can go down to Walmart and go buy, you know, 30-06 or not. I can't buy 223 or stuff like that because it's evil ammo. But like I can
Right.
buy 308, I can buy 243, I can buy ot 6, 65
That's way
Creedmoor.
less dangerous. That stuff's way less dangerous than your 223 or 556. In case you didn't know.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%.
Yeah.
The 30-06 didn't win world wars or anything like that. But yeah, like people don't understand that like all the crap that's, I'd say, holding the Second Amendment back, or that's fighting against the Second Amendment, starts in California and it slowly spreads out everywhere else.
It's cancerous.
Yeah.
It's cancerous. Just ask Oregon and ask Washington, the people in Washington. It's starting to
Yep.
bleed over into Idaho a little bit. They're trying to see what's going on in Colorado. Um,
Yep.
it's becoming a little less free. I it, we've learned to deal with it, and we work around it, and it's mind boggling and almost impossible to keep up with all the things you just mentioned. Just returning back to like all the crazy laws and things like that. Here's the thing: if you don't think it's coming to your state, ask the people in Illinois right now, and kind of what they're
Yep.
dealing with. If you need a little bit deeper look into it, ask the people in New Jersey and New York and the things that they have to go through. um this is the attempt is to spread this,
Yeah.
and people do want to take your guns. They do not want you to be able to exercise your rights. We watch it happen here clearly. Thank God for people like FPC is an example
Yep.
that are fighting the fight. CRPA right here in California, um, that they are fighting these fights on a daily basis, and they are winning them. Largely, they're unsung heroes. People are not
Yeah.
talking enough about this. So people need to know this, and again, like this is not of all the whatever the mountains to stand on. When we start thinking about all the things, right, and that we can enjoy here in terms of freedoms in the United States of America, all the things that your kids have, all the things that you have, all the things that your parents have, all the things that we don't have to deal with, um, and going right back to the First Amendment, with your freedom of speech. If you do not have a Second Amendment, you do not have a First Amendment.
Right.
And
$100%.
you can start going down the line there. And for you and me, that makes perfect sense. And we understand how it's tied in when you go back to kind of what our founding fathers looked at. I don't have any patience for our founding fathers didn't have AR-15s. You're right, they didn't. They didn't,
Right.
but we do now, and so
Yeah.
does our U.S. military, and so do bad people. So,
Yeah.
things have evolved. I don't. So that I will be care. I caution people with the arguments that they get themselves into and the discussions they get into. Going back to your high versus low capacity
Yeah.
magazine conversation, I think what you I try to be really patient with people when they want to maybe have an argument with me, and that is like, let's just find out what this person actually knows, and
Right.
that starts with the conversation. And once you start to get in there, you recognize they really aren't educated. And here's a good example, like of somebody that a lot of people do know, and that's Tulsi Gabbard. She was
Yep.
very much anti. I don't want to say anti Second Amendment, but anti gun there for a bit. She
Yeah.
sat down, she had some conversations, she listened to people. She is now changed her way. Now, for the reasons that she's doing it, I cannot tell you she's doing all of those, because she believes this is all the right things. I
Right.
can't say that for sure. What I'm saying is how
She's
that
having the
happened,
conversations.
and she's taking a risk. So whether she really
Yeah.
believes it or not, and she's doing this for some political stunt, I don't know. I don't. I'm gonna give her the benefit of the doubt and say that she's not. But that's a big risk to take,
Yeah.
right? And to walk back on things. But I think that's a good example of something that's like, maybe I should have a harder look at this, and really think about what this means and what I'm trying to do. So circling all the way back to the crazy gun laws, not one of those laws has changed one thing in terms of violence that's been committed with guns in this
Correct.
state or anywhere else. It hasn't. It's factual. Look it up. Doesn't change anything. That they will try, and they, being those that are advocating for these laws, will manipulate data. It's been done a million times. I'm
Yep.
not a conspiracy theorist. I'm also not a mathematician or statistician. I don't need to be to see what's happening,
Yeah.
in these reports where they're pulling that data and how they're representing it. Hasn't changed anything there. And all it's done is just made it harder for your law abiding, wants to be left alone citizen to exercise their Second Amendment rights, which is a
Yeah.
clear violation of the U.S. Constitution.
Right.
And they're doing it at will, following
In the
one
open. Yeah.
all day long, because nobody is stopping them from doing that. And
Right.
if you don't think it stops there, just wait. Again, you mentioned it. It's like cancer. It's going to spread, and it's not going to stop with the Second Amendment. So,
Yeah.
um, for whatever it's worth, that's my take and my word of warning. And this is what people should be very, very aware of right now.
Okay. And you kind of tied my second to last question in with that last one. Where's the industry headed with also what does the industry need to survive? I think we need to wake up is kind of the
Stop,
underlying
stop
message
fighting with
right
one
now.
another. Stop fighting with one another. It's so
Yeah.
stupid. Like, what do we all really want? Like, go
Yeah.
back to what's the one of the bigger problems? It's ego. Just put that
Yeah.
shit on the table for a second. Let's just get it out of here. Like, what do we really want here? And I think if we could kind of drop some of that stuff, yeah, we're we're in trouble if we don't knock this stupid shit off.
Yeah.
So, and I
100%.
don't mean we, the gun industry. I mean the United States of America, and the
Yeah.
gun industry, and gun culture, community, whatever you want to say. A second, it's a huge
Yeah.
part of that. So it just, yeah, get your shit together.
So from the outside looking in, what kind of impact does gun culture have on overall American culture?
It's America.
Yeah.
It's freedom. Um, and I think you can either help it or hurt it. That is the culture helping America or hurting America. I think at the end of the day, like, crawling into a hole and saying, "Hey, I'm a gun owner and I'm just going to keep my mouth shut," and but I support the Second Amendment. No, you're not supporting it. You're exercising it.
Right.
You're not supporting it. So I think that's the thing people need to think about. You need to say something, and I don't mean like run for political office or anything like that, but
Right.
maybe start having some conversations with the people that are close to you. Those are the easiest ones to generally start having conversations with, about their understanding of what it is and the importance of what the Second Amendment is.
Right.
But as far as it relates to the US, man, it is the thing that makes us different. It is the reason that we are not being, the it's the one of the reasons we can sleep comfortably at night knowing that, for example, people aren't going to roll tanks across roll tanks up on the beach and try to, cross into our country right now because of what you
Yeah.
said. There are more guns than people. Like, that presents a problem, right?
Yeah.
It also presents a problem for our government, which is the reason the Second Amendment was put together in the first place. And with the ridiculousness that I think is going on, there's some scared folks there because
Yeah.
this challenges their ability to continue to do what's been happening,
Right.
and I guess execute certain agendas. Again, I'm not conspiracy theorying anyway. I don't have to. I just look at what's happening.
Yeah.
uh
I mean, look at COVID.
Prime
It
example.
shut down the country for months.
No consequence. Again, you were scared, so was I. It's cool. How long are we going to
Yeah.
stay scared for? I don't think we need to be scared about a lot of this stuff anymore. Like, let's,
Yeah.
again, the whole follow science thing or whatever else. It's not something that's not for this podcast. That it had to happen at another time. But the point of that is yeah, that's a perfect example. It's kind of a glaring example of how quickly and easily it gets out of hand. And the Second Amendment is there to stop that from happening. I don't think you could pull that off again. I think if
Yeah.
you tried that again,
I
you
think there'd
might.
be a lot more fight this time.
Yeah. So, think about those things. Yeah, that is the Second Amendment, man. At a lot of levels, it's also, again, I think, in our very fabric as a country, when you think about it, there are a lot of people that maybe don't respect it and are afraid of it, also, but they don't understand what it means. They just see guns as bad. They're fearful. Um, I get that. Like, some awful shit that happens when guns get in the hands of bad people.
Yeah.
But
100%.
we think we should be addressing what's going on with these people to make them do the
People.
things that they're
Exactly.
doing. Yeah.
Um, so last question, and then we'll start to wrap this up. What do you want people to know about the gun culture? Like, you've hit on some positives, you've hit on some negatives. What do you want people to know about the American gun culture?
My experience has been very positive. Started as a
Okay.
kid, I kind of mentioned that. But I also recognize that it's not that way for a lot of people. And so, understand that it's not the people that are within this culture, and however we're defining that, are not perfect people. Just like you're not a perfect person. And I would encourage people to go explore it, ask some questions, and try to face some of those fears, and just try to maybe be a little bit more educated before casting judgment or going to the polls and voting in a certain way because you think doing that somehow helps you get over your fear, right?
Right.
And or solves a problem that isn't the problem. uh I think that's from the outside looking in, what you have inside here is a lot of very good people. Again, I just kind of mentioned, I know that can be taken a lot of different ways, but people looking from, of course, you're going to say that, man, that, that's the line. It always is. But then we see people going out there and shooting up schools or shopping malls or grocery stores or whatever.
Yep.
Those are not people in the culture that I'm talking about, that I've
Exactly.
been involved with, that, or why I'm sitting on here having this conversation with you. Those are some pretty disturbed people.
Yep.
And I want to have compassion for what drove them to do that. I don't know what all those things are. I'll never know that. But that is not the gun culture that I know. Nothing
Right.
saddens the people that I know inside here more than to see. We're just as sad as anybody else and disgusted by that as anybody else when we see it happening, when we see those kind of things happening. You know,
100%.
it, that is the truth. And again, so at the end of the day, we're all humans. We may
Yeah.
think a little differently, but we might have something to, on the off chance that we might have something to bring to the table in terms of education, some peace of mind in some way. I just ask people to open their eyes, open their hearts, open their minds to maybe, there are good people here. And
Yeah.
if you search for them, you will find them. But if you are already looking for the evil or you're looking for the
Yeah.
bad shit, you're gonna find that. You're gonna
I
find
don't
that.
I
It's the
don't know
first
where
thing you're
I
gonna
heard it,
find.
but they say if you look for positive, you find the positive, and if you
Yeah,
look for shit, you're gonna find the shit.
real fast. It's way easier to find that, right? It's
Yeah.
all over because that's what's being broadcast. That's
Yeah.
so forth. But yeah, um, it's not weirdos. I
Yeah.
used to kind of feel like, am I a weirdo? Well, once
Yeah.
I got out there and I recognized, like, no, it's not like that. It In some cases it is. Just like
Yeah.
if I got in some other stuff, that I'm not necessarily into, I'd probably think the same. Like, yeah, this is a little weird. And you
Yep.
might feel like, just let's be weird together. Let's just be weird together.
Yeah.
I'm Because I'm gonna stay weird. So
Yeah. 100%. So as we wrap this up, do you have any shout outs or sponsor plugs or anything that you want um my audience to know, or like where can they find you, or are you
thanks.
working with any companies within the firearms business? I know you mentioned Cobalt Kinetics, like
Yep.
uh give us that kind of information.
Sure, man. First off, thanks for the opportunity. I appreciate that. I mean, we mentioned at the top of the show, the business is Red Dot Fitness. We provide, personalized health and wellness services, including fitness and nutrition services to folks. We do that in person and online. So you can check us out. Just go to rdftrainonline.com. You'll find out all the
Okay.
things you need to know there. The podcast is has been fun, and it's our way of reaching people and providing the free information and education and things. We talk about a lot of things. I mentioned the two different types of things that we cover. You can catch us if you go to ironsightspodcast.com. You can find us there. Both places have Instagrams. We're very active there on Instagram,
Hmm.
red_dot_fitness or Iron Sights podcast on Instagram. It's a good way to contact us
I mean,
too.
that's
If you
literally how I reached out to you guys.
Yeah, you're gonna get, like, if you reach out on Ironsight, you're gonna get me. I don't have a crew doing this for me,
Right.
and you're gonna get either me or CC on the Red Dot page. So if you reach out to us there, as far as sponsors and stuff go, I really appreciate that. Now to answer your question specifically, and for the people listening to the show, I purposely have not married myself to anybody in the firearms industry because I didn't ever want to come across, and I've
Yep.
been very careful about this. Not that I ever will, but I would be very careful about not coming across as a shill, like the people that we maybe described in
Hmm.
our personality types and things like that. You know, throughout this. But I do have some sponsors that I feel very strongly about, have very good relationships with. One is more on the health and fitness side. It's called Bioprotein Tech. They make a
Yep.
basically a natural alternative to human growth hormone. Best way to find out about them is to go to Bioprotein Tech on Instagram. A lot of information. You can learn all about that. At my kind of where I am in life and my age and how I work out, and what's been an awesome product for me. And then lastly, I do have a very strong relationship with a company called Silent, SLNT. They make Faraday cages and cases for the everyday person, that to protect your cellular device and your mobile laptop, your laptops, your mobile device, your electronic devices from like anything that's NFC, EMP. Basically, it takes you off grid.
Right.
Put your device in there, and nobody can get into it. You kind of disappear, if you will. You can't get
So,
hacked.
so I'm
Yeah.
actually going to be picking some stuff up from them if I'm going to be going over to South Korea. Like,
You
um,
Anybody traveling to Asia, particularly China,
yeah,
you should have a Faraday cage for your stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm going to probably pick up like a laptop sleeve and then a phone sleeve for sure.
I highly encourage it. They just came out with some new stuff too, some really cool, like cool stuff. But yeah, just peace of mind because your shit's gonna
Yeah.
be farmed while you're walking
Yep.
through an airport, you're walking through a shopping a hotel, whatever. Your data is very, very accessible to those that have the right tools and the will to get at it. And I think privacy is very, very important for people to protect closely, and I think it's time for us to take it back. So Silent's a company I've been working with. They're awesome. Love those guys, and so I continue. I go Silent on Instagram, GOSLNT. They're awesome. Or just go to silent.com.
Okay. And those are all the places that people can find you, were the Red Dot Fitness and
Mhm.
the Iron Sights.
Yeah, you go directly at Iron Sights or Red Dot Fitness. You'll find me both spots.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you guys for joining us on another GD podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast. Share this episode as it helps grow our listenership and exposes to an ever-growing fan base. If you have questions for me or you have suggestions for guests for the podcast, please reach out to me. Instagram at another GD podcast or my email guy.demarco.84 at gmail.com. Till next time, keep your powder dry and we'll see you at the range.